All right, Joe Lindley, welcome to the podcast. Lost Nostalgia is the name of my podcast.
Lost Nostalgia.
Yes.
I love nostalgia.
Yes, it's kind of the longing for home, and it's this project. I remember when you came in here, was it a couple months ago now, when you were just getting the film off the ground, talking about how a story kind of found you, and then I was watching it this morning and seeing how you interwove a bunch of different narratives. You kind of had a narrative that you wanted to go in with it, and then the world kind of presented you another one, and then you overlay this mythological narrative over the top of it. So that's kind of what I want to start off talking about, is narrative as a thing that humans love finding themselves in.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, like, storytelling is what brings humans together. Like, the first campfire, there was probably a story. And it was probably very simple, like, tiger by rock, don't go by rock, you know? But storytelling is how humans relate and begin to understand each other and realize that we're not really all so alone on our own journeys. And so that's really like the idea with this film was, you know, one of the main themes of Ashes of the Mountain is grief. And grief, while it is tough, you know, speaking of nostalgia, there's like an aspect of grief to nostalgia. But grief is one of the most universal, most painful things that most people can relate to. If you've lost a dog, if you've lost a parent, a grandparent, you know, God forbid, someone even closer or too early in life, you can relate to this theme of grief. And so we really set off to Africa, and kind of going into the layers here, we set off to Africa to spread the ashes of one of my friend's grandfathers. And I didn't know Cody West, the main character, very well at the time. We just met at the Ocean Lab across town. I was like folding towels and met him while I was working there. And I mentioned Kilimanjaro, and he was like, I'd love to go. And then he talked to his dad on the phone a couple days later, and he's like, hey, his dad tells him that it was his grandfather's dream to climb Kilimanjaro before he died. He wasn't able to due to Parkinson's disease. And so we had like a why. Like, we're not just going to Africa to climb a mountain. And that's this film for me, this journey for me, Expedition, was really whenever I evolved from the mindset of like conquering to meaning. And so rather than doing something to do it, doing something to
Just
gather.
because it's hard.
Yeah, doing it, you know, you do things because they're hard, but having something more of a reason that you're doing it. And so whenever I heard, you know, it was Grandpa's dream to climb Kilimanjaro and we were going to spread his ashes at the top, I was like, done. You know, this is a beautiful story. And even still, on the way to the mountain, on the mountain, up the mountain, it was just going to be a YouTube video. And, you know, fast forward, it is a YouTube video now. But, like, it was just going to be a vlog, you know, like some buddies climbing a mountain. But I really didn't expect there to be so much substance to the trip. Like, I knew it was going to be heartfelt. I knew it was going to be, like, a very wholesome journey. But, you know, like 4 friends climbing a mountain, spread some ashes, like, that's probably not a feature film. It's probably not my first feature film. But then, you know, we get halfway into the trip. Things go terribly sideways, near-death experience in the group, helicopter evacuation. And then I get home and I'm like shell-shocked. And I meet my now fiance, Lauren, at the park. And she went to film school and I did not go to film school. So I had no idea how to make a movie. And I showed her, you know, vulnerably, because, you know, showing people things before they're finished is definitely a vulnerable thing in the creative space. And she was like, this has to be a movie. Like, the character development, the masculine relationships, you know, the story arc has to be a movie. And so began my journey of the layering, because if I just had 4 dudes climbing a mountain, that's what it would have been with a near-death experience. But I wanted the viewer to feel like we felt on the mountain.
To add gravity.
Yeah, to add this, like, underlying tension so that when we get to that climactic moment, the viewer feels like we felt, which is like, holy shit. Like, this person might die right now in front of me. And for me, and like historically, documentary is very talking heads, you know, it'll be like on the mountain, and then it'll be like me sitting in a chair just like this and be like, so at this moment in time, we felt like this. and then it'll go back to the mountain. And I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to pull the viewer
Out of it. Yeah.
out of the experience, because if you pull them out, then they can only go so deep when they get back into it. But if we don't pull them out of it, then they can kind of go deep with us. And so enter the dreamscapes and like the nonlinear storytelling to kind of like add that extra information without pulling people out of it.
Yeah, you have breaks, like mini breaks throughout the film where you go to these chess pieces moving, you throw a lot of symbolism up, but you keep music, and it's almost allows whatever just happened to sink in a little bit, to sift in the background while you're showing some more dramatic stuff, and then you move to the next one where a more documentary style would have just, all right, the thing happened, whoop, we're sitting in the chair, talk about it, and then thrust you back in. But it keeps this, I felt like I was in the story the whole time of as it progressed, as it kept getting deeper. And I wanted to touch on your point of grief, and how grief also with the idea of nostalgia and the idea of place. That place was a very big part of the film. You're moving from one threshold to another was something you used a lot. You're leaving Austin. You're getting back to Austin. You're going past this. You're on day 5. Place. Grief was an interesting thing when I was graduating college. I spent 4 years at this one place, and it was the day before graduation, and just this, man, like I spent 4 years here, all the friends, and it was this, I was feeling the separation from this place. And I think grief has to do with when we lose something that's core to our story, core to the person that we are. And it's, to your friend Cody, that was his grandfather, and making sure you honored that and kind of almost like close the loop on it. You could finish the loop, and having the separation. You have the 2 guys going up the mountain and 2 guys going down the mountain was a
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you haven't watched the movie yet and you're watching this, wherever this ends up, there will be spoilers from here on out. So probably go watch the movie. Definitely worth watching. I'm biased, but we're gonna spoil it. So unless you want it spoiled, to go on grief as well. I have been experiencing a lot of grief in the last month and a half. My grandmother got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and within like pretty much 6 weeks passed away. She was kind of like the matriarch of my dad's side of the family. And I was supposed to interview her before she passed, and like wasn't able to do that because she just went downhill so quick. And then like 36 hours later, one of our dogs passed away as well after also battling cancer. And so, I've been reflecting a lot on grief. And, a part 1 of this point that I want to make is, as a storyteller, or it's really a blessing in life when going through hard things to be a storyteller, because it's a way to process by removing yourself from the situation. So whenever I was, for instance, staying with my grandmother, I stayed overnight in the hospital, like slept on the couch for 2 nights while she was there. And I was journaling about the experience because I was like, I can now write this. I can now understand this experience and try and turn it into a message or a moment in a movie and do it justice. Because without holding the straw for my grandmother, in the dark while she's like begging for water, and I can feel the cold come through the straw, and that's like how I know she's actually getting water or not. Like if I hadn't had that experience, then I wouldn't be able to tell the intricate details of the scene or the place, or like the genius loci, the spirit of the place, as you were kind of talking about. And so being blessed with being a storyteller really allowed me to kind of process those things in a different, probably area of my brain than most people do. That, I'm trying to make sense of it, but also I'm trying to like see the beauty in the story. And that's a muscle, I think, that you exercise. And so that's kind of like point 1.
Yeah.
And then point 2 is, grief is love with nowhere to go. And it's really interesting because whenever you lose somebody, or you lose something, a dog, or even just a thing, like you realize your love for that thing. And even despite, the moments of tension you may have had with that person or that thing, my grandma was like a very layered person. Like she taught me everything I know about cards, taught me to be a card shark. And she was also like, to some degree, kind of like a hard woman because she had to be. She grew up as a woman in business in small town Texas, And so it kind of makes you forget that nuance and really focus on all of the positives if you let grief take you to the right place.
Yeah. I think your point about storytelling is a good one. And I think at their best, our humans are at their best when they are storytellers, when they've had stories that impact them and they can see themselves in the story and then make sense of the place that they're in within a similar story. You referenced Viktor Frankl's book over and over again as a Man's Search for Meaning in the film. And I could see you guys both after the story and in the middle of it, seeing yourselves in that story. And I think it is a muscle that we can train. And I think all humans need to be storytellers. I think it makes the human experience better because we can take the moment of you guys going up to spread the ashes. You can transfer the message through the story. You can transfer the message and the value that your grandma brought to the world through a story. You can take the lessons and like we could distill it down into these philosophical maxims or tell like reason A, B, C, and D why you should do X, Y, and Z. But when you put it in a story, that's when it becomes real. That's when you get to experience it secondhand almost. And that's where you can take that on.
On the storytellers at their best as humans, whenever they are storytellers, I think is what you said. It brings up an interesting topic. Whenever we were leaving Africa, we flew through Kenya, and Cody brought up the idea of the tortured artist. And so I think putting our work into the world is really the best thing that we can do. In terms of meaning, that's probably a hot take and not something that everyone would agree with. Of course, loving people too, but like Hunter S. Thompson, have you seen his schedule for his day of writing?
Think so, no.
It's like wake up 3 p.m., 3:05 line of cocaine, 3:10 champagne, 3:15 cigarette, 3:25 spaghetti, like 3:30 cocaine, 4 o'clock. It's like between champagne and cocaine and spaghetti all the way, and then like hot tub all the way until like 2 a.m. And then at like 2:05 he starts writing and then goes to bed at like 8 a.m. And that's like his daily writing schedule, which is like a meme. It's meme worthy. It's a great story, but he definitely was not at his best. And so I bring this up because two storytellers can experience the exact same thing and react to it differently. Like I could have experienced this near-death experience. One of my best friend, like now best friends, absolute best friends in the world, through this experience, I could have watched all that happen and then come back and like self-destructed because I was shell-shocked, like brought this expedition into the world and then one of my friends almost dies. Like, should I ever even go out into the world again? Like, but I also helped save his life. And so that gave me an added sense of confidence. But, there's a divergence. There's almost a crossroads. Whenever something like this happens, you get to choose which road you want to take. Do I want to torture myself? Or do I want to kind of take the high road and see all of the good that can come out of this? And so I don't think we're necessarily guaranteed to be our best people as storytellers, but we have the opportunity to be.
I would agree with that because it's storytelling. I think it's similar to your story with Lauren. It's vulnerable. Like you're opening yourself up to like an inner life that other people's haven't seen, your way of looking at the world. almost. Like you're peeling back your worldview to say, hey, this is how I experienced the thing, or I think maybe you could take something from experiencing the world this way. It's like an adventure. Like you have a shot on adventure that you could almost die on the side of a mountain or do die on the side of a mountain, or you ascend to the top and reach the summit. And I think it's a great analogy for so many things, whether it's someone deciding, hey, I'm going to start this business, or hey, I'm going to go put a film up on YouTube, or hey, I'm going to leave a potentially good sales job like in Indiana and move and make not much in the podcast space to try to go on the adventure. And I think a lot of people, like, there are the two ways from that. You can get scarred by it, and it is a terrifying thing because it's like your identity, it's like your dreams. Like if your dreams, like, to have those shattered is almost like, does life mean anything? And like that's an extremely scary thing, but it's also like it's the two sides of the coin. It's like on the one side it could be everything you dreamed of, and the other side, like, you can find out that it's all smoke in the wind and life isn't anything.
Yeah, I've been battling with meaning a bit over the past couple months because something I wasn't really prepared for is because whenever you like set out to make a big thing, you can't really fathom the other side of it. And when you do, if you're an optimist, a devout optimist like me, you're kind of like, okay, what are the best case scenarios? And you're like trying not to expect those, but you hope for them. You hope for, like, have you seen Obsession yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, this YouTuber made a feature film for $750,000. He's got a pretty extensive following on YouTube, like a good amount of subscribers. They do like skits. And he got an opportunity to make his first feature, and it's done like over 200 million in the box office in the past few weeks, which is like wild for the world of film. Like YouTubers, same with Backrooms as well.
Yeah, those are the two big ones right now.
They're huge, and it's two YouTubers, like, and one of them's 20 years old. And so I think whenever we have these dreams, we like look at the best case scenarios and we're like, it's possible. And it is possible. It's definitely a non-zero chance that those things can happen. And on the other side, like I wanted to get 1 million views in 6 months, which is not impossible still, but I'm at like just under 10K in 4. Right. And, like the algorithm could have had better luck for me. Like I could have made a different thumbnail. There's all these what ifs. And so I had a conversation in here with Noah a couple months ago as well. And it's kind of like the gift is being able to make the thing and anything else is extra. And after a couple months of marketing this and, kind of being scared to market it, because I'm like, once I've done everything I set out to do, then I can either, quote unquote, fail or succeed. But if I don't finish it, then I haven't finished it yet. So I haven't failed or succeeded. And so it's just like this interesting black hole on the other side of a big creative feat that I've never experienced before. And at some point, you're just like, all right, I got to keep going. Like, what's the next step? What are the big things I need to accomplish? Like, I need to make more money by also doing the things that I love and that I'm good at. And like these skills making this thing have set me up with uniquely, so that I can make more films. And, like you kind of hope for a lucky break and maybe it's on its way still. And also perhaps you're just supposed to work for it and work for it and work for it. So when you finally do get it, it's like, nah, that was not luck.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Like just hedging your effort a little bit just to hide the impact that, okay, well, I never fully put myself out there. Like I remember that being such a thing. Like it was just like 6-page papers in college. Like even just procrastinating on those, because if I wait till like 10 p.m. to start getting it done, it's like, oh, I didn't put my full effort in. And it's like, if it comes back with a B, it's like, oh, I didn't put my full effort in. And it's so alluring, like that perfectionism, because it's like, I guess it's probably out of a fear of, or would you say it's perfectionism or somewhere between that, procrastination? It's like on that.
Yeah. What is procrastination except for probably a stress response, right? Like this big thing in front of me. If I don't do it yet, then I don't know how much work it's really going to take. And then you start that paper at 10 p.m. or even midnight the night before, and you're like, oh my God. Well, at least I'm only stressed now, but before I was stressed about potentially being stressed. So it's like, and that's what I did all through college too. Like if I had a big project or a big paper due, it was like all nighter the night before. But making a film, you can't make a film in a night.
No.
But I did set really, really, like, this is how I got this film done, was I set, like, really optimistic deadlines. Like, I'm going to have this film done in 4 months. And then I'd work for 4 months straight and be like, okay, it's not 4 months, but I'm going to apply to this film festival that's in 4 months. And then, you, like, work for 4 more months and submit to the film festival, like, what you had, a work in progress. And so, like, it was delusion over the course of like probably 10 different deadlines in 4 years that allowed me to finish this. Because if I would have given myself 4 years, it probably would have taken 10, So I think, the procrastination was a really good thing to kind of get over here and realize that like, the best version of myself has that mental thing off my plate and it's just done. It's like in my court, out of my court, and whoever's court it's in, they can worry about it. That way it's not like taking up extra space in my head.
Yeah, I'm curious about inspiration and what kept you like pushing through, because a big part of the film is you guys have your mission in this story. And I'm curious, you as an artist, as a creator of this, what was your inspiration? Was it other filmmakers who made films that really resonated with you and you wanted to follow in those footsteps? Were there characters from movies, from books, from stories? Who did Joe Lindley see himself being when putting this project together?
Interesting question. I think there's like 2 parts to that. First of all, Christopher Nolan. Have you watched Interstellar yet?
No.
I told this man to watch Interstellar.
He's been on me for this for like 4 months.
Yeah, and he hasn't.
It's true.
But like Christopher Nolan, he's known for nonlinear storytelling and themes of like destiny and fate and, can you change certain things, dreams as well. And so like he's definitely a big inspiration. And for me, finding inspiration, this whole thing was like a puzzle. Like whenever you approach at least documentary, because I think there needs to be a distinction in this conversation between narrative film, which is fiction, and documentary. Within narrative, you set out to make a story and you create a shot list and you have dialogue and you go in there and you shoot it. And as a director, you get to decide like, how far can it veer off of my original vision? In documentary, you're like capturing these events, watching them unfold, and to try and make it take a specific direction is kind of anti-documentary. And so at the end of capturing this expedition, I have to try and make sense of it, right? Like, what is the story here? And so you start going back through all the footage. You were videoing or filming the whole time. I was filming the whole time. And it's like, ooh, little tidbits of foreshadowing that I just so happened to capture. And so like Cody starts talking about this book that he just read, which is Man's Search for Meaning. And like 9 out of 10 people die in concentration camps. And the people that didn't die had this thing that they needed to do when they got out. And he just plants that on like day 1 of the hike for whatever reason, because Cody is just like a philosophical dude that wants to talk about deep stuff. And then, of course, we get to this point in the expedition where Cody has this near-death anaphylactic shock death experience. And he tells us later that he remembered his fiance in those moments. Like, he couldn't think of pretty much anything else except for breathe and I have to get home to my fiance, Erin. And so, like, that foreshadowing from Man's Search for Meaning, like, set him up to be able to get through that moment. If he hadn't read that book, like, I think it's natural for people to kind of latch on in these near-death experiences if they have time to like, I need to do that or to be back with this person. And so going back through all the footage, I'm like, well, here's this and then here's this, but also building up to Cody and this, I had like a 20-minute, the camera's on a rock because I had to make an ethical decision as a filmmaker and as documentarian on the mountain. Like, do I film this? Like, do I film this man dying? If he dies, like right now, do I want to be the filmmaker that's in his face while he's unconscious? Like, there's definitely some ethics there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, in my near-death experience the summer before on the bike ride, I did not get that on film. So I at least want this on film. So I put the camera, still recording off to the side, still frame of this whole thing unfolding. It's not even properly focused, which is probably good because you can't see like his eyes rolling in the back of his head and stuff. And it's kind of graphic, but it's no blood and gore, but it's not exactly something that you can easily forget. So regardless, I'm stuck with this 20-minute frame of Cody's near-death experience, but how do you make that interesting, right? So that's where the dream sequences came in. I was like, okay, I need to show what Cody's thinking about. And I don't have to recreate it. Like I've been on trips with Cody and Aaron, and I have video of Aaron on a trip that we went on, a year later after this thing. So like those things started coming together, and then I realized I can't just have one dream. Otherwise that's going to be like really jarring. Like, what is this? So let's build the dreams up to where whenever you get there, you know what's happening. You understand this is the subconscious mind, or at least that's the goal.
Yeah. It was reminiscent of Dune in that way, of the building up of you get just flashes of dreams for
Right.
Paul early on, and then it just fills out more as it goes on to where it's almost becomes reality, which
Right.
is, and you kind of have that right at the end of the them getting married and then going off, and then you end it with their kid is on the way.
Right. Yeah. And my goal as a filmmaker is I want people to feel like they're watching Lord of the Rings. The movie finishes and you find out it was real people, real events, unscripted, right? Like I want to delete, in terms of documentary and expedition film, like I want to delete the talking heads almost entirely. Like set people up with scenes to like plan the thing, and none of it's scripted. It's just like, we're going to plan the trip today, and there's going to be a filmmaker in the room that's filming this, a DP. And for it to really feel like a movie, not just a documentary, but a movie as well. So that's kind of my direction that I want to move in. But also, since this all got posted, I was like, all right, well, I don't have enough money to just start another movie. Like start editing and, hiring people to make this documentary that I filmed on the bike ride, but I can write. And the cool thing about moving from documentary to narrative film is there's no guardrails. Like there's no bumpers. You can write whatever you want. You can be in whatever world you want. And so that's been a really cool exercise to be like, I can write whatever I want. I've been working on a couple concepts for the past few years, and like I actually just, finished my first like 150-page screenplay. So it's like,
Wow.
it's a really cool segue into like, yeah, I really want these expedition pieces. Like I want to do 4 of them, 4 big ones. And this was like the first film that was kind of like a proof of concept. But for the rest of them, I want them to be much higher quality in terms of like the gear we use.
Yeah,
and the
production
sound.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious now, I'd like to talk about almost your progression as a filmmaker, because you had a plan for this expedition film. You're filming it, kind of just be like a long form YouTube video. What were you doing before? And then now I guess the follow-up question to that will be, how has this influenced where you're going to go from a filmmaking standpoint in the future? So where were you before Ashes of the Mountain?
So the summer prior, so that we filmed this in August of 2022. The summer of 2021, I realized like we've got to make something. I've got to make something. I want to make a movie. And I feel like, something with a finish line, like an expedition with a finish line, a big thing that most people wouldn't be jealous of doing. So like what comes to mind? I'm like, all right, maybe like ride a bike across the country. I don't have a bike, but like I could probably borrow someone's bike. So I borrowed my friend's mom's bicycle and was like, okay, I'm going to ride across the country for mental health awareness. We're going to film the whole thing. We're going to interview people about their life and their story and their takes on mental health all across the country. And then, we're going to start in the Outer Banks, North Carolina, and finish in Santa Monica. And like, I don't know. I mean, I was just like so optimistic and just like committed myself to this thing, having like really no idea everything that was going to come of it. And rode like 2,886 miles across the country in like 2 months, like 55 days, into the wind, the wrong way across the country, which is funny, but also kind of allegorical and metaphorical for struggles with mental health. So, it went super well. We had a van with no AC at night. It was hot. We struggled. It was the number one word that Patrick, the driver of the van, my best friend that was also on Kilimanjaro, would describe this trip as was nostalgia. Like, you just felt like every second, like sleeping in the van or waking up covered in sweat, that like you were living in a memory. Like it was the whole thing was entirely surreal. And then like 2,000 miles across the country, I got taken out by a dump truck. I don't know if I've told you that story before, but like dump truck passed me on the shoulder of the I was on the shoulder of the freeway. Dump truck passed me going 75 miles an hour. Person driving it flipped the switch to release everything inside the dump truck. So like 15 tons of torn up highway slammed into me from behind, like swept me down the road, engulfed my body in rubble. And got up. I really thought I was going to have no legs based on how it felt whenever I got up. But, paramedics arrived. They're like, listen, people don't get up from that, much less walk away. And in that moment, whenever I got slammed in it, like, a truck passes you on a bicycle and normally like gets loud and then quieter. But it got louder and louder. And I was like, shit. And in that moment, I was like, this is it. But I didn't have time. It was so quick that, for Cody being like, this is what I've got to do. The only thing I could really think was like, man, I'm across on the side of the road now. Like, and then I came to a halt and like got up. It's like, holy shit. And the paramedics were like, count your blessings. Like, people don't survive that. So that happened. I had like road rash, I
think you had a couple clips in Ashes.
Yeah. So that was the near-death experience I refer to in this film, which also gave me the lens to be able to even tell a near-death experience film. Like how can, like I said, is like the storyteller experiencing things gives them tools in their toolkit to be able to tell more stories, like, grief next to someone's deathbed, right? Like, unless you've experienced that, how can you tell it? And of course people can try, and I'm sure people do it justice, but like for me, having had this own near-death experience, I felt equipped to be like, okay, I feel like I can try and do this justice as a storyteller, as a filmmaker. And so as this, I got back on the bicycle, finished the bike ride, not before I had, sepsis and was hospitalized, but I was presented with this massive story that was 2 months long and, hundreds of hours of footage and interviews. And I've never made a film before. I didn't go to film school, like I said. So it's like, okay, I'm going to put that to the side for a bit. Let's plan a smaller expedition. Let's make a smaller video, a YouTube video, Kilimanjaro. And so that whole year in between, I was kind of like building up to this, working at the Ocean Lab to like make ends meet in between and also process my own near-death experience and then, get called to the next adventure. And then, of course, this one ended up being a huge story too, but it was still only like 14 days of total trip versus,
2 months. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that all led up to that. And then, since filming this, it's really been getting deeper into the actual production world on the documentary side. And this has been a good calling card for me to show people like, hey, I want to help you make this. Here's what I've made. Here are some caveats to like production quality that I like didn't have a cinema camera whenever we went on this trip. It's just a regular DSLR. So like it's been good to get deeper into the production world, and like went to a film event last night, meeting more people in the narrative space to get on film sets in that area. So, branching. But this is like a great first big step.
Yeah, it's a really cool project to kind of just fall on you. And I'm curious why expeditions, why these journeys? Is there where did that start for you?
I just grew up loving adventure and extreme sports. Like, snowboarding, wakeboarding was really my first like extreme sports love. I remember one of my buddies, Hunter Cogdell, whenever I got a GoPro, he was like, "What do you have to GoPro?" And I was like, I'm gonna make sure I have stuff to GoPro. So I started in GoPro, and then we would go on these like trips with friends, whether it was like dirt bikes in Baja or snowboarding or whatever, ski trips. I was always the friend that I was filming the whole time, and at the end of the trip, all my friends were like, "When's the video gonna be done?" Because I would just make these kind of like montages set to music, and it was just a cool way to remember the thing and not just have this massive library of clips that no one ever sees. And so I just started doing that and going on more and more trips and going like, kind of upgrading my gear and getting a drone and just like getting cooler and cooler shots to capture the spirit of the places that I went. And so the spirit of the place is really what I seek, talking about geography, talking about, locations. It's like Kilimanjaro had a very specific genius loci, like spirit of the place. And all the places that I go have that very specific thing. So it's really what these places teach us about ourselves. And I don't really know another way to get that in documentary, to have this like hero's journey without a beginning and end, a destination in mind, a journey along the way. Who you become in the pursuit of the objective, if you make the objective at all. And so I love traveling. I love adventure. I love extreme sports. And, to combine all those, like most people don't really want to bike across the country. Like it just doesn't sound fun to them. But so there is definitely an element of glory to that. And this is something I've been talking a lot about lately. It's like, I just finished Beowulf again. And it's like, is glory worth pursuing
as a thing in and of itself?
Yeah. And it's the storytelling in and of itself also creates a contrast to the pursuit of quote unquote glory. That's like, if I were just doing these things to do them and share them on social media, to each their own. For me, like coming away with a story and a takeaway allows people to experience certain environments and places that they might never experience without this story, right? Like my English teacher from high school gave like a raving review on this that like meant the world to me. She was calling me like Dante. And I was like, you taught Dante to me. And so that feels really, really good. But Miss Wiley would not go climb Kilimanjaro. And so she got to go on this trip and experience this place and like what it taught people, to then come home and try and turn that into a story and then share it with the world. And so I think that's like the stories you leave behind. Like I want to leave good stories behind. I want people to not just remember I don't want people to remember what I did. I want people to remember how those stories made them feel and reflect on their own lives. And so I think that's kind of the difference between like glory and, doing something for deeper meaning.
Yeah, it's glory in service of something else. It's not just dying for the sake of your own honor, but it's something that like she could live through you, live out the experience of climbing the mountain through you and biking across America, meeting all these people on the way through you. Because stories really are these proxy experiences that we get to put these glasses almost on our world and see things from a different shade of blue, or maybe you see the world through green and I see through yellow, and we can kind of shift a little bit and see through the window. I think that's it's why I love stories so much, why you love stories. I think that's why we all love stories. We get to feel what it feels like to be Joe, or to be Cody, or to be Darrow from Red Rising, or Paul Atreides. All we get to see the world through their eyes and be them for
I'm
a
excited for
second.
you to finally watch Interstellar. Like Matthew McConaughey and like Christopher Nolan, like space movie. Like you're gonna be like, oh man, I'm glad I finally watched
Yeah,
this.
I know it.
But yeah, I think that's an interest. Like I just think about that a lot lately. You know, watching people go and climb Everest as well. You know, nothing has ever been quite as accessible to watch people do. And so you can kind of like make your own decisions on like, all right, there were 50 people on Instagram this year on my algorithm that climbed Everest. And it's like, why did you climb Everest? And I'm not judging, I'm just curious. You know, if you do it for just glory and you have a near-death experience or you're about to die, how do you feel in that moment? But if you do it for a bigger cause, do you feel different in that moment? Interesting questions, but I think how we share things is an interesting question with the world, because people are like, why are you posting this thing about, you know, some random person, let's say, posts their dog dying. And there's oftentimes comments like, you're sharing this for likes. I can't believe you do that. And it's like, okay, that's one perspective, and maybe they are. For me, you know, I'm sharing the experience losing my grandmother, or, you know, my partner's dog is kind of more of like a, if I can try and make sense of this, maybe other people can make sense of it too. And that might come with some backlash from certain people. Like one of the reels for Ashes of the Mountain promotion went viral, and it's of course like the climactic moment. And people were like, I swear if this is some sort of documentary where they're just trying to like capitalize on this near-death experience. And then they went and watched it and they were like, actually, correction, it did it justice. You know, I'm glad that they told this story. But, you know, depending on the storyteller, I could have gone in here and just totally leaned into that, taken advantage of the story, you know, made it clickbaity. So I don't know how we got on that topic, but train of thought.
I think that's good. And this kind of conversation also makes me think about nostalgia as well. As the way I see nostalgia is this. I think in the Greek it's loose. It's based on a French word that's a combination of two Greek words that have to do with longing for home. And I think stories help us try on different characters or different settings or different things, different ways of looking at the world that help us find the mold that we get to fit in the world. Like you get to try on, like the interesting thing with the second half of Red Rising, it's got multiple characters rather than just the one that you're following. And you get to try on, oh, these three different characters all are viewing the same event through a very different lens. And you get to see which character you kind of want to be more like in what circumstances. And
Right.
I think stories help us find the mold that we want to fit in, the ruts that we get to find, and to then be another branch off of that tree that is their story, because someone else might see this, be inspired, and maybe take a slight different turn of this type of medium. Like you took Christopher Nolan's non-linear storytelling, these dream shots, all these creative things, and then you put your own spin on it. And I think that's the beauty of creativity, is it just keeps on perpetuating itself through these, oh, I'm going to put a little wrinkle here, I'm going to put a little wrinkle here, or make this addition, change this a little bit. I think that's just the endless coolness of humanity. They can just keep on changing and shifting these things around.
For sure. And like talking about, you know, these characters and how they inspire personality specifically. Like I watched A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger whenever I was probably, I don't know, let's call it 6 is whenever I was 6 when it came out. And I saw the main character and I was like, I want to be him. And then like probably to some degree took on some of the qualities of this main character in this movie. And then, you know, fast forward to 2026, like 25 years later, and I get obsessed with these Red Rising books. And I'm like, I kind of love Darrow.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, he has these Joker tendencies, because I also loved The Dark Knight with also Heath Ledger. And I have a Joker tattooed on my ankle because, like, there is this level, and this is the beauty of what Red Rising does with these multiple character lenses, is it kind of makes you understand where they're coming from. And they may not be right fully to you, or it may not be ethically right, but you can kind of understand based on all of these arguments that they make how they could think that way. And so with Darrow, he has this, you know, it's very epic in that he has like a lot of moments where you're like, oh, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
I understand why you did that, but like you are blurring the lines. And I'm excited for you to get into Lightbringer, because I was like, man, this is just so up the lane of like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It gets very philosophical. And, you know, I started like this year kind of basing myself off of Darrow in certain ways, where I'm like, you know, my word of the year is gold. And gold means like, what would the gold like standard of me do right now? You know, like, would I sit on the couch for 5 more minutes and, you know, like scroll on reels, or would I like go on a walk? And so I just try and like do the thing that the more golden standard would do. And I
Which is not enslave Reds.
Right. Which I also like chose that word for the year in January whenever I was in Golden Sun of the series. And so like as you get deeper, you're like, yeah, these golds, like there's definitely good golds for sure.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's more nuanced than just like good and bad on either side. That's for sure.
And oh man, that's a whole other digging into the politics in the second half. But I'm still like, it's so hard to talk about those books unless you're at the exact same point, because
There's so much going on. Yeah.
But from here, I'd like to get into filmmaking as an art that's changing. You brought up Obsession and Backrooms earlier as these 2 low-budget films that are blowing up the film industry right now. Interesting concept films like this that wouldn't have been able to be put out anytime until kind of the last like 5-10 years, where you can more or less put things up online. The barrier to entry to editing and producing things, the cost of high quality equipment generally going down over time, all this stuff. I'm really curious to see where you think filmmaking is going as a space right now.
Well, I think we're in a really interesting time specifically with AI. So I've got a hot take on AI and filmmaking, that you get on Instagram and you trust less and less and less whether something is real or it's AI. And the beauty about documentary is that it's true and it's real people and it's unscripted. And so I think we're going to see a bit of a renaissance in at least the next 5 years on people leaning towards a more creative form of documentary. I'm biased. I'm in the space already. I've made one. I can make more by having done them already. But like, they're going to be using AI in narrative filmmaking very soon.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be feature-length films. There's already actors that are AI, right? That like belong to a company and will act in movies. And so I think people are already sick of that. Like, I see ads and I can immediately tell that it's AI, and I'm like, you just spent like $5 to make this ad, whenever like 10 years ago it would have probably cost you $30,000. And you are trading in connection with the audience. I don't want to watch an AI ad. Like, I just don't care. Like, I actually appreciate the company so much less, because you just like took shortcuts and, you know, kind of like, screw you. So I think people are going to get sick of that whenever it starts making it into narrative film. And so I think we'll see a little bit of an insurgence of documentary. And I hope, Like right now, really the only documentaries, and this is why I put this thing free on YouTube, was the only ones that are getting distribution or sales are like murder, crime, and sports. Like that is how people know documentary.
Yeah.
Um,
Or history, kind of.
I mean, even history, but that's like docu-series style. Like I'm falling asleep in terms of like entertainment. But if we can just do more, like Expedition is great because it's like beginning, end, hero's journey is already incorporated, have good character development. Like I can do that every trip I go on, you know, and find a good story within it. So I think we'll see definitely a rise of documentary, and then also people will have less specialized roles. Like I was sitting in Premiere Pro with Lauren the other night helping her edit something. And I'm like, man, like the sound on this is messed up. Like the audio is kind of like fuzzy, wiry. And then you just press a button on Premiere Pro. I'm like, it just mixed it. And like we probably could have paid someone $1,000 to do that. And so I think the specialized labor is going to go down to where like I could have made this film with a much smaller team, but I really wanted to experience what it would be like to bring a sound team on and to like just get everything right. So I think over the next couple years, the AI technology to do the work behind the scenes versus on the screen will get really good. Like you'll be able to be like, hey, I want this whole film color graded like The Martian film. And it'll be like, boom, done. Like, let me run for 15, 20, maybe even like an hour. And then your film will come back color graded and you'll make some edits and be like, that's done. So I think the accessibility is going to continue to get more and more and more accessible, which is going to create a larger supply of movies that's going to be harder to get your movie seen. But I hope that the right ones end up rising to the top.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing of lowering it. Yeah, lowers the barrier of entry, which is good for people who have creativity and cool stories to tell, but then it also can be a way that people might try to do quick, easy money grab, just make something, put something up. I think your point with the AI technology, I am hopeful for that being something that can lower the barrier of entry to people who are creative. Like the amount of projects like this that will be able to be made on a smaller budget is just going to be like, I think it's great for the scene, because I would imagine you'd also hold this opinion that a lot of people online seem to not be big fans of Hollywood and what's been put out in the last 10 years, of that the big budget studios and everything just haven't been making great stories.
Well, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. One quick example of that. There's this movie called The Gorge. Have you seen it? It's an Apple TV original. So. And I like, it's my number one example of this. It has Anya Taylor-Joy from The Queen's Gambit, and it has Miles Teller from Top Gun Maverick, right? In this movie that was $69 million. And it's free if you have an Apple TV subscription. And there's definitely a business model here that I'm unaware of because I don't work with massive budgets that big. But this movie was terrible. Like it had like a cool concept, bad dialogue, A-list celebrities that like it was fun to watch them on screen, terrible CGI, and just like not a good catharsis at the end or ending whatsoever. Like it kind of brought you to a place that was like, why are you bringing me here? And so I bring that up because like, why can't we give 69 first-time filmmakers $1 million? Like that would be the better business model, I think, from like a macro perspective, because if you gave me $1 million chance right now, like I would do my absolute best work to like make that my big break. and 68 other people would do the same thing. So you would get like the next Shining or the next like amazing film, at least one that would make over $69 million. Like it would like we just did with Obsession, right? Like $750,000, $220 million in like the first 3 weeks of Obsession being out. Like that is not like that is definitely a unicorn. And we have to emphasize that for everyone that's an aspiring filmmaker. Like you hear the success stories because they're success stories. You don't hear all the failure stories because no one wants to hear them. But it would guarantee that one of those, like, got to be a guarantee that one of those does really, really good. And it would give more filmmakers an opportunity to actually come up with original art. But we don't want to see original art, according to Hollywood, right? They just want to keep making another Avengers or a new Harry Potter series.
Make the live action remake of the live action remake.
Yeah, and it's just exhausting. Like, what art for capitalism's sake or, money making sake is an interesting thing because Hollywood and the big studios just go with the formula that they know works.
It's safe.
It's safe. And like it makes sense to be safe. Like I can understand as a business person that you'd be like, yeah, do we want to gamble or do we want to like probably make, at least a couple $1 million off of this film? But like they're greedy. And what I love about this technology is that more people are going to be able to try their luck and make their own luck versus, having to be greenlit by a studio. So $750K, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited for it. I see a lot of comedy films, like a lot of comedians are getting into the small budget comedy movie space. It felt like for about 20 years there had been a lull in comedy since the 2000s, and then back
since like Step Brothers.
Yeah. I just you think of like the Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey movies and all those comedy films. We watched, me and my roommates watched Dazed and Confused a couple weeks ago, the early Austin McConaughey film, and just creative, fun stuff like that seems to have a landing pad to come back through technology like this. A lot of comics are wanting to fire up some stuff. We've had a couple comics out of the studio here start writing and working on some scripts for some funny stuff. And it's, on the one hand, like been a dire space, but there is also, I think, some optimism around it as well. You've got these films blowing up. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next handful of years has to do for everything in media, lowering the barrier of entry for some creative people to get some stuff done. So I guess that can segue here. We're getting close to the end. Where's Joe hoping to move next with your efforts? Are you primarily focusing on marketing for this film, getting the next project up and running? What's on the docket for you?
I've got like my philosophy in life is like plant seeds as much as you can. Because like you never know what's going to sprout, right? You if you plant one seed and you're like, man, I really just hope this thing works out for me. Like you're really putting all your eggs in one basket. And so, I told you I've written a couple screenplays. Like I've sent some feelers out there, working in the narrative, starting to work in the narrative filmmaking space too, and like get on sets and try and make connections. I have this expedition that I've been planning for like 3 years, 4 years now that I've been like really wanting to make happen. And so I really want to row across the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm just trying to find the right team for it that can bring the money to be able to do it. Like, sponsorship, etc. Because I want to make a space film in the ocean, like kind of journey through space, Interstellar-esque, kind of like going crazy on a 23-foot rowboat with 3 other guys over the course of like 6 to 8 weeks in the middle of the ocean, right? Like how do you tell a story, a movie, like a feature film? How do you tell a large story like that from a 20-foot space? That is some crazy constraints to work with. And so, like, to bring a cinema camera, to do all of the planning, to film all of the planning, to really capture the character arc and development, and, you know, be the director, DP, and rower as a part of the expedition with a couple other people. Like, Noah is like, if I had the money, I'm sure Noah would do it with me. Jason's also talked about doing it too.
Get the Squatch team together.
But really, like, the person that I think would be really great for it is, you know, Matt Johnson.
Yeah, the runner.
Yeah. So, dude is Severo.
I
Like,
can see that.
I did not understand. I did not understand Matt Johnson, like, from afar. I've never really met him, but I didn't understand him until I read Red Rising, and I was like, dude, this guy is Severo. Like, he's like totally unpredictable, wild, super fit, like absolute unit of a human, ex-military, like kind of crazy in like a Severo way, like a lovable way. So I'm like, I want to get a hold of him. I've been trying to get Noah to get a hold of him and like talk to him about it. This is really the first time I've publicly talked about this, because, you know, you always run the risk of like someone taking that idea.
Yeah.
But I think then you like make yourself replaceable. I don't really think I'm replaceable on that expedition. Like, I think if someone else wanted to take that expedition, they would bring me. Mainly because, like, okay, what are you going to do? Get someone else to row that can be a DP, a director, a storyteller, and all those things together? Like, you probably should just go with me. So that's like what I really want to happen, but I got to get married first. And the time to take that rowing expedition is in February. Or no, actually, sorry, the very beginning of the year. My wedding's next February to Lauren. And definitely can't miss that or even cut that one close. So I'm, you know, I think ideally we'd plan this thing for 2028, like the very beginning of 2028, train for it for at least a year. And you know, get all the right gear, get all the right sponsorship, make a movie, and get like one big sponsor like Nike or Red Bull.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like, you know, planning things like that, sending out feelers, trying to make meetings, see if anything sticks. Like, that's the life of a filmmaker. That's the life of a storyteller. Like,
A lot of coffees.
A lot of coffees. Am I going to write a book? Like, instead of making the film first? Maybe, because it's a lot cheaper. It's free to write a book besides the time you spent.
Yeah.
But like with a movie, you can't make one for $0, right? But you can, you know, write the book first, see if it sells well, see if it gets represented, and then, you know, turn it into a movie. So a lot of stuff's happening. I'm doing a lot of stuff to continue the creative flow of new work and just trying to like leave open space for the luck to line up in whatever area it chooses to line up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I've got a couple connections that we can talk about after this rolls off or something like that. I know some people who do a lot of action filming, and then I know we've had a couple people who've recorded with Matt Johnson in here, so we can talk about that after. But Joe, I want to thank you for making the time. You've been traveling a lot. Really appreciate you coming to sit down and chat about the movie. I watched it this morning. It was a really cool experience, and look forward to seeing what you keep putting out.
Will you make me a promise?
All right.
You know what I'm about to say?
Got an educated guess.
What am I about to say?
Don't see you until I've watched Interstellar.
No, of course I'll see you, but like definitely just watch Interstellar.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to watch the movie though.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
It means a lot, and you know, hoping to put more out there like this so that more people can find out what all this stuff's about. So if you're curious about what the meaning of life is, hot take, watch this film and you'll know. It's pretty nuanced, but you'll know.
On that note, good show.
Appreciate it, bro. Awesome.